Bonjour à tous. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the French Made Easy podcast. This is episode number 161, numéro 161. Today we are talking about reflexive verbs. Now don't worry if you are unfamiliar with them, I'll explain what they are in just a second. Now, before we start, as always, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. Please make sure you have your lessons cheat sheet handy so you can see the spelling of the words while you listen. And when you finish this episode, you can head over to the French Made Easy exercise library to download your lessons, exercises, and practice what you've learned today. You will find all the download links in the episode notes. It is free. So, what are reflexive verbs? So reflexive verbs are verbs that are special because the action of the verb reflects back on the subject. That means that the person performing the action of the verb also receives it. For example, let's take the reflexive verb se laver. Se laver. It means to wash oneself. Laver means to wash, but se laver means to wash oneself, not just to wash. Now, as you can see, this type of verb, the reflexive verbs, come in two parts. So there's the main verb, laver, and there's the reflexive pronoun, se laver. So they come in two parts. And the reflexive pronoun, se, in the infinitive, se laver, changes depending on the subject of the verb. So here's how it works. For the verb se laver, to wash oneself, the reflexive pronoun se becomes me for the subject pronoun je. That means I. Je me lave. So se becomes me. Je me lave. I wash myself. For the subject pronoun tu, the reflexive pronoun se becomes te. Tu te laves. You wash yourself. For the subject pronouns il or elle or on, the reflexive pronoun se stays the same. It's se, S-I. Par exemple, il se lave, he washes himself. Or elle se lave, she washes herself. Or on se lave, we are washing ourselves. For the subject pronoun nous, the reflexive pronoun se becomes nous. So you're going to have a repetition here. Nous lavons. Nous lavons. We wash ourselves. For the subject pronoun vous, the reflexive pronoun se becomes vous. Vous lavez. So you also have a repetition here. Vous lavez. You wash yourselves. Now, for the subject pronoun il in a plural or elle in a plural, the reflexive pronoun se stays the same. Par exemple, il se lave or elle se lave. They wash themselves. So just quick recap on this. The reflexive pronoun, which is a part of the reflexive verb, becomes me for the subject pronoun je. It becomes te for the subject pronoun tu. It stays the same, se for the subject pronouns il, elle, and on. It becomes nous for the subject pronoun nous. It becomes vous for the subject pronoun vous, and it stays the same, S-I, se, for the subject pronouns il or elle. All right, so now that you have a rough idea of what the reflexive pronouns are and how it works, and it probably doesn't make much sense the first time you hear this. You really need to have the transcript and cheat sheets in front of you and to do some exercises to practice this. You're going to need to practice quite a bit if you are completely new to reflexive verbs. Now that you know how it sort of works, I'm going to give you 5 verbs, 5 reflexive verbs, and their conjugation, all conjugated in the present tense. So it's going to make a little bit more sense. So let's start with our first verb, se réveiller. Se réveiller, that means to wake up. Se réveiller. So I'm going to give you the full conjugation. I really want you to pay attention first to the reflexive pronoun, se. Pay attention to it. Have a look at how it transforms for each subject pronoun, right? So first one, je me réveille. I wake up. Je me réveille. Tu te réveilles. You wake up. Tu te réveilles. Il or elle se réveille. He or she wakes up. Il or elle se réveille. On se réveille. We wake up. On se réveille. Nous nous réveillons. We wake up. Nous nous réveillons. Vous vous réveillez. You wake up, plural. Vous vous réveillez. Il or elle se réveille. They wake up. Il or elle se réveille. Now, let's move on to our second verb. I've already given you the example, so I'm going to go quickly through this one. Se laver, to wash oneself. Se laver. So here's the conjugation. Je me lave. I wash myself. Je me lave. Tu te laves. You wash yourself. Tu te laves. Il or elle se lave. He or she washes himself or herself. Il or elle se lave. On se lave. We are washing ourselves. On se lave. Nous nous lavons. We are washing ourselves. Nous nous lavons. Vous vous lavez. You are washing yourselves. Vous vous lavez. And finally, il or elle se lave. They are washing themselves. Il or elle se lave. Now, let's move on to our third verb, s'habiller, to dress oneself. S'habiller. So here we don't have se, we have s with an apostrophe simply because habiller starts with a mute H. So it's the same as if it was starting with a vowel. I can't have 2 vowels together. We can't have se habiller. So we put S and an apostrophe, s'habiller, to dress oneself. Conjugation is je m'habille, I get dressed or I dress myself. Je m'habille. Tu t'habilles, you get dressed. Tu t'habilles. Il or elle s'habille, he or she gets dressed. Il or elle s'habille. On s'habille. We get dressed. On s'habille. Nous nous habillons. We get dressed. Nous nous habillons. Vous vous habillez. You get dressed. Vous vous habillez. Il or elle s'habille. They get dressed. Il or elle s'habille. Now, verb number 4, se reposer, to rest. Se reposer. Je me repose, I rest. Je me repose. Tu te reposes, you rest. Tu te reposes. Il or elle se repose, he or she rests. Il or elle se repose. On se repose. We rest. On se repose. Nous nous reposons. We rest. Nous nous reposons. Vous vous reposez. You rest. Vous reposez. Il ou elle se repose. They rest. Il ou elle se repose. And final verb, se coucher, to go to bed. Se coucher. Conjugation is je me couche, I go to bed. Je me couche. Tu te couches, you go to bed. Tu te couches. Il ou elle se couche, he or she goes to bed. Il ou elle se couche. On se couche, we go to bed. On se couche. Nous nous couchons, we go to bed. Nous nous couchons. Vous vous couchez, you go to bed. Vous vous couchez. And finally, il ou elle se couche. They go to bed. Il ou elle se couche. So, quick recap. Reflexive verbs come in two parts. The reflexive pronoun se, which changes depending on the subject and the main verb. The reflexive pronoun becomes me for the subject pronoun je. It becomes te for the subject pronoun tu. It stays the same, se for il, elle, or on. It becomes nous for the subject pronoun nous. It becomes vous for the subject pronoun vous. And it stays the same, se, for subject pronouns il or elle. And the 5 verbs that we discussed today were se réveiller, to wake up, se laver, to wash oneself, s'habiller, to get dressed or to dress oneself, se reposer, to rest, se coucher, to go to bed. So that is now the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't worry, if it's your first time hearing about reflexive verbs, you might have to go through that a few times, to go through that lesson a few times. But don't forget to download your exercises so you can practice what you've learned today. I will chat with you next week. À bientôt. Bye. Before you go, I just wanted to let you know that if you are struggling with French pronunciation, I'm excited to announce that my free beginner's audio guide, 5-step roadmap to effortless French pronunciation, is back. It's designed to simplify your French pronunciation learning journey and make it less overwhelming for you. So if you are a beginner starting or restarting to learn French and you want to improve your French pronunciation, then this audio guide is perfect for you. And obviously you'll get a transcript with the audio guide so you can follow along while you listen. So click the link inside your podcast notes to access your audio guide. It is free. À bientôt. Bye.